Man or bear? In the early months of 2024, a street interview went viral on TikTok. The question was simple. If you were to find yourself stranded in the middle of a forest, who would you choose as your companion? A man or a bear?
Bear. Man is scary. With a bear.
Well, I've heard about bears. They don't always attack you, right? Unless you fuck with them. So maybe a bear.
Depends what man, but probably a bear.
Out of the 8 women interviewed, 7 chose the bear. Naturally, this caused a stir online, and netizens around the globe joined in on the conversation. Some agreed with the women, some mocked them, and some called it misandry. But for the women watching, it was more than just an internet debate because it shed light on a bleak reality. One where danger almost never comes with fangs or claws, but with the familiarity of a human face. It spoke to the quiet but constant calculations we as women make every day. When we walk alone at night, when we enter an elevator, or when we park our cars in an empty parking lot late in the night. And as for me, Rachel, a 27-year-old Indian woman, answering that question honestly takes less than a second's thought, much like the women in the video. The reason has always been there in the news, on the internet, and in the many conversations I've had with my female peers. Today, we are covering one of those reasons. Because today, we are covering the harrowing case of Alison Botha. Abel, how about you tell me, what would you choose, a man or a bear?
I choose a man.
A man.
Yes.
Please elaborate, because I wouldn't.
Well, because I know for a fact that I would definitely get eaten or torn apart by a bear, whereas a man and I can work out, come together, and cultivate a plan to try and get out.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Today, when I was just scrolling through the internet like one would, and I came across this woman who asked her husband, "What would you choose, a bear or taking a shower in a men's prison, naked?" So then, what would you choose in that scenario?
Okay, that complicates things.
See, that's a little bit of what it's like to make this choice as a woman. That's a taste of it, I think. But yeah, let's get into the case. Hey everyone, and welcome to our little channel here. My name is Rachel, and I have with me my partner Abel. And this is our very first video on this channel. And today we're diving into our very first case. And it's a case of an incredibly resilient and courageous and inspiring woman who went through something really unthinkable. So I need to give you a content warning at this point. This video will have mentions of SA, some graphic details and some extreme violence. So if that's not something you are comfortable listening to, this is your cue to move to a different video. So, and for those of you who are staying with us here, let's get into it. Nestled along the coast of South Africa's Eastern Cape province lies the city of Port Elizabeth. Now, Port Elizabeth is this stunning city. It's known for its blue flag beaches, surfing spots, and wildlife reserves all over sprinkled across the city. So due to these reasons, the city draws thousands of visitors every year. Among them in 1994 was Tian Elard, a 20-year-old veterinary student from Johannesburg. On December 18th of that year, Tian and his friends were on their final day of their summer vacation in Port Elizabeth. So to make the most out of it, they decided they'll head to a camping ground somewhere on the outskirts of Port Elizabeth. So late in the night on the 17th, they all piled into a car and began their journey to the campsite. After a few hours, they reached this desolate stretch of road. It wasn't pitch black because it was a full moon night and the place was quite illuminated, but it was very quiet, eerily quiet almost. As far as your eye could see, there was not a soul in sight. Around 2:45 a.m., both their car and the one trailing behind them came to a screeching halt. The driver had seen something on the road. Tian and his friends, they stepped out to investigate, and at first, they could not believe what they were seeing. It was a human being, A woman, a naked woman in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere. Tian instinctively runs up to her, kneels by her side, takes off his shirt and covers her up. He tells her, "You're going to be all right," and he holds on to her hand. Tian does not leave her hand for the rest of the night. His friends at this point are calling the ambulance and the police on their mobile phone. Tian takes a good look at the woman. Her entire body is covered in this fine layer of black sand. Her hair is matted with twigs and leaves, and she had scratches all over her body. But that's not even the alarming part. There was a lot of blood. She was covered in blood. Her neck seemed to be slashed open from ear to ear, and there was this gaping slit so deep, so wide that you could see through her veins and her muscles and her windpipe. And all of it was slashed in two. He notices something protruding from her neck, a mass of slimy substance. See, Tian, he's not a doctor, he's only a veterinary student, but he knew human anatomy enough to realize that the substance was her thyroid. So he gently took her thyroid with his hands and shoved it back into her neck cavity. Tian could not believe his eyes. There is no way this someone who had been through something like that could be alive, that they could have survived it. But her eyes are open, swollen and bloodshot, but they were open, and she was looking at him with full awareness. This woman was still trying to tell him something. With her gestures, she motioned him towards her stomach. Tian noticed that there was this denim shirt pressed against her abdomen. So he very gently and cautiously lifted the shirt to see what she was gesturing towards, and what he saw shook him to its core. Her stomach also had been slashed open, and her intestines were outside her body. Tian was horrified by what he saw, but he knew he couldn't react. He just looked back at her, gripped her hand tighter, and he said, "You're going to be all right. Don't worry. You're not going to die on this road, and I will not let you." While he put on this brave face for the woman, he was losing it inside. The police had told them that they would be sending an ambulance in 15 minutes. Now it has been way more than 15 minutes, and there is no sign of the ambulance. But Tian again could not show it on his face. He just knew that it was crucial that she stays awake, because if she drifts off, she might never wake up again. They established this trick to communicate. He told her, "Press my hand twice for no and once for yes." So for the next 90 minutes, until the ambulance finally, yeah, I said 90 minutes, he does not divert his attention elsewhere. Because when he does occasionally look away to see if the ambulance had arrived or if his friends are there, he could see that she was dozing off. Perhaps it was the first time the whole night that she felt safe. After 90 minutes and 4 phone calls, the ambulance finally arrives. Even in the ambulance, Tian got into the ambulance with her, by the way. Tian does not let go of her hand. The ambulance workers took one look at her. I think it comes with experience. They could see that this woman was injured beyond recovery for them, right? After the experience, they could see that her neck has been slashed, her stomach has been slashed open. So they just took one look at her and decided she's not going to make it. So they're not rushing or taking it seriously. Tian's the only one telling them to hurry up, still holding her hand. It is when she is rolled on a stretcher into the trauma unit of the provincial hospital of Port Elizabeth, he finally let go of her. And even then, as she disappears into the trauma unit, he shouts at her, he tells her, "I'm going to be right here when you wake up."
Many people wouldn't know how to react in that scenario.
I mean, I don't know if I would. I think I'd freeze up, really.
Would be calling the ambulance, but then to wait for 90 minutes.
And you have to realize, I mean, just as you were saying, calling the ambulance, this was 1994.
Yeah, the odds of one of you having a phone.
Yeah, that itself was a big deal. I think Tian couldn't have behaved, reacted any other way. I think he did the right thing. And he did everything right in that scenario. You really have to give it to him.
Trying to keep her awake.
Yeah.
And make sure that he was there for her the whole time, making sure that she was staying awake, did not letting her eyes shut. All that must have added up because it's him trying to will her into continue living.
Yeah, terrifying,
Yeah.
really. The doctors at the provincial hospital who attended her that night established that the woman was raped repeatedly that night. She was stabbed close to 40 times in her abdomen, which disemboweled her, and her throat was slashed 17 times. And they would later come to know that the woman's name was Alison. Unlike Tian, Alison was not a tourist to Port Elizabeth. She was born and raised there. She lived with her mother and her brother after her parents got divorced when she was only 10, building a quiet but comfortable life in the only place she had ever called home. Growing up, Alison did not particularly know what to do with her life or what she wanted to be, but I guess people around her were always in awe of her confidence. In school, when she went to an all girls school, by the way. She was elected the head girl. I went to an all girls school too. We had these elections as well for head girl, and it was always such a big deal. We used to go around the campaign just singing campaign slogans and stuff like that. And it was always the smartest and the most confident girls who were elected the head girl. Did you have head girls? Did you have the concept of head girls in your school? Head girl, head boys.
Yeah, we did have a head boy and a head girl in school.
Were you ever in the running?
No, I used to be one of the people that chanted,
This was a thing in your school too?
Yeah.
I thought it was just us,
Wow.
So we took it very
I think
seriously.
it's every school, honestly.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you'd have to be very popular amongst your peers and, the younger grades, the
Yeah.
older grades to actually be the
Exactly. And it's always like the most politically savvy people, right? Yeah, you can imagine what Alison was like, really. After she graduated from school, Alison was not sure what to do with her life even then. So she attended the Port Elizabeth Technikon for a year where she studied to be a secretary. Then she worked in Port Elizabeth for 3 more years before she moved on to London for work. And from there, she traveled the world for 4 more years. When she returned, her mom was just relieved that her daughter was back home in her hometown, safe and sound with her friends and family all around her. Alison, who was then 27 yeyears old, found herself a job as an insurance broker in her hometown. I think when you spend your whole life in one place, you develop this sense of comfort, don't you? Like I did. I used to live in Bangalore for 8 years, but Bangalore is this beautiful city, and I remember feeling so safe no matter what time of the day it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, terrible things happen to people there. However, there's that familiarity of the place that really gives you a sense of comfort and safety, doesn't it? Yeah, but safety, as you know, can sometimes be an illusion, especially for women. South Africa, just like many other countries in the world, is even now grappling with what is called an epidemic of gender based violence. In fact, if you didn't know, South Africa has been called the rape capital of the world, recording the highest number of rapes for any country that is not at war. In 1999, just 5 years after the night Alison was found left for dead in the middle of nowhere, a women's magazine called Femina released an anti-rape advert starring Charlize Theron.
Hi, I'm Charlize Theron. People often ask me what the men are like in South Africa. Well, if you consider that more women are raped in South Africa than any other country in the world, that 1 out of 3 women will be raped in their lifetime in South Africa, that every 26 seconds a woman is raped in South Africa, and perhaps worst of all, that the rest of the men in South Africa seem to think that rape isn't their problem. It's not that easy to say what the men in South Africa are like, because there seem to be so few of them out there.
The statistics that she quoted, as horrifying as they are, still hold true even today. Gender-based violence continues to cast its large and dark shadow over South African women. Alison, who was then 27 years old, knew the dangers of being a woman in her country. But what was she supposed to do? Stop living her best life? She was in her 20s in the comfort of her hometown and she had plenty of friends. So, Alison had spent the whole Saturday at the beach with her friend Kim. It was just one of those perfect summer days on December 17th, 1994. When they were finally tired of the beach, the pair headed to Kim's place where more friends joined them. All of them then sat on Kim's balcony, taking in the summer weather and just chatting it up.
That must have been fun.
Right? It's just one of those days. It just reminds me of one of those days that we have with our friends, right?
Yeah.
They just were not ready to call it a day even by the end of the evening. So they spontaneously decided that they'd move the party to Alison's place. So they all drove there, had a mini pizza party, played games, drank a bottle of wine, just another perfect Saturday night. So late in the night, finally they decided to wrap things up, and one by one her friends started leaving. But her friend Kim, remember, she didn't bring her car because Alison had told her that she would drop her home. Also, Alison had done her laundry at Kim's place, so it only made sense that Alison drop her off and pick up the laundry on the way back. So when she was done with that, it was around 1 a.m. on the 18th when she returned near her home. But that night, her usual parking spot, it was taken. She was slightly irritated, but she just had a long day and all she wanted to do is find another parking spot and hit the bed. So that's what she did. She found this other little parking spot a little further away from her house. It's not really the ideal spot, but because the light from the street lamp didn't really reach there, but she had no other options. So she reversed the car, parked it in the new spot, switched off the engine, turned off the lights, and reached over to the passenger side seat to pick up the pile of laundry she had just taken from Kim's. And that's when it happened. The next thing you know, the driver's side door flew open, and before she could turn around and see who it was, she spotted a knife at her neck. It was a man, scrawny and tall, with light blonde hair, and he was wielding this long thin knife at her neck. He said, "Move over or I'll kill you." Alison went into survival mode immediately. She did as she was told and she moved to the passenger seat, and the man then hopped in and started driving away with Alison in the passenger seat. It all happened so fast that Alison could not believe this was happening to her. One moment she's enjoying her Saturday night with her friends, and the next she's being abducted at knife point in her own car in her own hometown. I know what you're thinking right now. Like, why didn't she just jump out, right? I mean, I thought that when I was reading this, and trust me, she was thinking this too. In her head, she was going, I'm going to jump out, do it. But her whole body was just frozen in shock. Also, how many of us would really jump off a moving car?
Yeah, that's
Right? Like,
scary to think
at that point, you're just trying to understand what is happening to begin with before you decide to jump out of a moving
And
car.
it can also be, just thinking positive. Maybe I don't have to jump out of the car. Maybe nothing bad is going to happen to me in the first place.
Exactly. Then the man started casually talking to her. He said, "I just want the car for an hour. What's your name?" Alison could not believe the audacity of this man. He was trying to make small talk with someone he had just abducted. I mean, at this point, she didn't want to share any real information with her abductor, so she just said, "Oh, my name is Susan. What's yours?" Trying to collect more information. So he replied saying his name was Clinton.
So this guy was just trying to abduct her and
Make small
make small talk, just converse with her like it was another casual.
day. Yeah, who does that? Isn't that so odd? Clinton looked like he was in his mid-20s and he was also acting really odd, even given the situation. He asked her, "Do you live alone?" So Alison jumped at this opportunity and lied, "Yeah, I have a boyfriend and he's waiting for me at home, so just drop me off and take the car. I won't go to the police." To which he replied, "No, I want some company. I'm looking for a friend who stole my TV and he owes me money." Alison, for some reason, chose to believe it. I think she was just trying to remain positive. So she thought maybe it's a drug dealing thing or something like that. This man is going to find his friend, get his money, and this will all be over, she thought. Eventually, they reached what is commonly considered the wrong side of the city, and they stopped at this club called Club Tonight. So Clinton, now hunched over on the wheel, scanning people, muttering to himself, where is he? They drove around this area for a bit and he's actively searching for somebody, right? And after a few minutes, another man dressed fully in black walked towards the car, opened the back door, and made himself comfortable in the back seat. Clinton addressed this new man and he said, "Oh, meet my friend Susan." And to Alison, he said, "This is Theon's." Theon's, right? Not Tian. Theon's. Tian Elard was yeah. And this is Theon's. Alison turned to look at this new person sitting in the back of a car, hoping to find maybe some sort of pity in this guy's eyes, right? Nothing. The new guy looked much younger than Clinton, but he also looked like the literal embodiment of the devil. Just plain dead, cold evil, dressed fully in black. And then the three of them drove off again, this time heading out of town. Alison watched the streetlights disappear in the rearview mirror, and eventually there were no more buildings, no more cars, and no more people.
She's just stuck there with two strangers moving away from the place she's most comfortable
Exactly.
with, being taken further and further away.
I know, and Alison could not believe she was being abducted either. She kept telling herself, maybe they're taking the long way to the town, right? Maybe they'll stop at the Holiday Inn on the outskirts of the town and she could just talk to the security guard there. At some point, Clinton does slow down, but only to stop at the small clearing at the side of the deserted highway. The place was dirty and it was littered with like barbecue fires and ash, and there were broken bottles all over the place. And Alison is just taking notes at this point. Where is she? What's around her? So he parked the car and turned off the engine, only for Theon to immediately get out of the car. He walked away and lit a cigarette. Alison and Clinton were the only two people left in the car, and for a moment, nobody spoke. Alison was the first to break the silence. She said, "Now what?" "But I thought you would have realized we wanted sex. Are you going to fight?" I mean, what was she supposed to say? Are you going to fight? She was stranded in the middle of nowhere. There was not a soul in sight except for the two monsters who brought her there, and they had a knife. That's all the information she knows. They had a knife, and God knows what they're willing to do with it, right? So she just said, "No." She thought to herself, if they're going to rape me, let them. I can take it. So he said, "Take off your clothes." So she quietly took off every piece of clothing off her body, one by one. Clinton immediately got incredibly aggressive. See, this is where things start getting really dark, and it might be a little hard for everyone to listen to, but it's very important for the case that we understand the severity of how things went. So he ordered her to give him oral sex and shoved her head towards him. And he was also holding this knife above her, telling her, "If you bite me, I'll kill you." She's just trying to get it over with, first of all, she's trying not to throw up, right? So Clinton then pushed her, forcibly filleted her, and he's also talking to her this whole time. Like I said, right? He's casually talking to her like they were on a date. He asked her things like, "Oh, do you like it? Does your boyfriend ever do this to you? Oh, you have the nicest tasting fanny." Just disgusting shit. She was absolutely disgusted by him too the whole time. While she was being essayed, she just held on to the roof of the car, right? While she was being raped. And from his shoulder, she could see the little ghoul just standing outside the car and watching them. Clinton then got out of the car, called his 19-year-old accomplice Theons, and asked loudly, "Do you want to have sex with the lovely lady?" Theons then responds in Afrikaans, actually. He responds something really crude, and this is what it translates to. It says, "No, I want to fuck that bitch." Don't speak to her like that. She's a lady. So they just
Whole time they just
taunting her, making fun of her. Exactly, they're taunting and mocking her while also like brutally abusing her, but also taking the time to make her feel bad. Theon's, once they're done with that wholesome conversation, gets into the car and he essays her too, or at least he tries to. So he does not really get hard, or neither does he finish. So he gets really frustrated, leaves the car, walks over to the bonnet, sits on it, and then takes out a knife. See, this one, it does not look like the flimsy one Clinton had. This one was bigger and it was scarier, and the sight of it made Alison shiver. She felt so vulnerable sitting there naked at the sight of it. So she just looks at Clinton and goes, "Can I put on my clothes?" And Clinton is not even addressing her. He does not care if she exists at this point, so he does not reply. So which she takes it as a yes, and she just starts dressing herself up. Alison was thinking maybe this was it. They're done with her, and now she gets to go, right? That's when she heard the guy Theons, the little guy, call out for a France. France. See, he had told her his name was Clinton. Now Alison's like, who is Franz? So that's his name. His name is Franz, not Clinton. So she makes a quick note of that in her head. And then the two men start discussing in front of her, starts discussing what they were planning on doing with her. They tell her they have two options. The first one was that they're going to let her go, but naked and stranded in the middle of nowhere. And as for the second option, Theons turns to France and smugly asks, "What do you think Om Nick would want us to do with her, eh?" So, Om Nick is the Afrikaans word for old Nick, which I didn't know this because I'm not a native English speaker, but I think it's a euphemism for the devil. So, what he asked was, "What do you think the devil would want us to do with her, eh?" And then, to which France then replies, "I think he'd want us to kill her." In front of her, they're discussing this to her. France then tells Alison, who is now in the car with her clothes back on, to remove her clothes again. Alison was actually quite relieved by this request because she was like, this is what they said they were going to do, right? They were going to leave her naked and stranded in the middle of nowhere to fend for herself. And this will be their final act of humiliation, right?
Yeah, so she's thinking, okay, they're gonna.
Yeah, this is it. They're done. They're just trying to scare her. See,
option
the
one.
thing is, Alison really does not show any sign of fear this whole time. So she is trying to not give them the satisfaction throughout this ordeal. She's not trying to give them the satisfaction. So she is not showing them fear, right? So in her head, she's like, because I'm not showing them any fear, they're just trying to scare me. They're just going to let me go. They're done with me now. They're just going to let me go. If I'm naked, let it be. This is good, right? Out of the two options, yeah, it was good. So she took off all of her clothes except for her sandals. She keeps her sandals on because she's thinking, I'll need the sandals for the walk back home. So she keeps the sandals on and she just hopes to God this guy does not notice it. But right after she undresses, Franz pounces on her. He lunged forward and started choking her. Alison was taken by shock because she was really thinking that they were going to let her go. And as she was being choked, in her final desperate plea for mercy, Alison manages to gasp and say, "Please, don't kill me." Franz simply says sorry and continued to strangle her. The last thing Alison remembered before losing her consciousness was her bowels evacuating. So she actually pooped. But Alison does not die. See, when she regains her consciousness again, she was no longer in the car. She is out in the open on the ground, and Franz is on top of her this time with a knife, stabbing her again and again and again in her stomach. And he would stab her close to 37 times, as the doctors found out. And the monsters don't even stop there. Theons then took charge, took the knife from him and slashes her throat. Only for Franz to then again shove him over to the side, snatch the knife back again and slash her over and over again on her neck.
37 times.
37 times. And they don't even stop there. They slash her neck close to 17 times. By this point, Alison could not feel anything. Her whole body is so brutally injured that she could no longer register pain, right? So all she could see was Franz on top of her and his hands going from left to right, left to right, left to right, just slashing her throat, and the sound of her muscles severing.
Oh my God.
I know. And she was slipping in and out of consciousness. She's not fully awake at this point. She's slipping in and out of consciousness. And when she finally comes to it, her vision is a blur. She could hardly see anything. And the men were gone. at least for now. She noticed that the men are gone, but there's this strange, wet, gurgling sound in the air. It's like this wheezing sound, right? So, but it took a moment for her to realize that the sound was emanating from her. So, a windpipe had been slashed open, and she was actually taking in air through her windpipe, which was causing the gurgling sound. Yes, and that's there throughout. All she can hear, her vision is blurred, and she can hear this sound just going on and on and on. Then somewhere behind her, she heard one of them talk again. You think she's dead? There's no way someone could survive that. Alison drifted off again. When she woke up, she felt something being thrown at her, and she heard the car driving away. And for the first time in hours that night, Alison was alone. She was grappling with what felt like the final moments of her life, consumed by this overwhelming sadness, thinking how she was injured beyond repair. She didn't want the men to do what they did to her to any other woman ever again. Even as she was drifting off, she's thinking about the other women. So she, with whatever energy she had left in her, she turned to the side, and on the sand she wrote France and Theon's, like her assailants' names.
With all those injuries, she still managed
to turn around
and write the
Her-
names of those assailants.
Yeah. And under that, she also wrote, I love mom. Because even, I think as she was drifting off, she was just thinking about her mother, who would the next morning find out about what had happened to her. And she was thinking, she wanted her mom to know that she was thinking about her in the end. Then it was time for her to leave, to end her misery. Slowly, she let the gurgling sound fade away, and Alison felt herself levitating from her body. She could see herself curled up on the floor, and it felt peaceful for the first time in hours. Something inside her wasn't done yet. It wasn't ready to let go. It kept telling her to just choose life one more time. And suddenly, the gurgling sound returned, and she could feel everything. Like she was awake, and she was ready to make a move, this time towards the road. But first, she had to take care of something else altogether. So while she was getting ready to move to the road, she noticed this slimy, long, wet thing hanging near her feet. So it was her intestines which was spilling out of her stomach from her stab wounds. Remember when I told you that she had felt something thrown at her when she woke up in the middle? So what happened was Theon's and Franz had thrown her denim jacket at her as they left for whatever reason, right? Alison did some quick thinking, and she thought, maybe I can use it. So she reached out for the jacket, and she used it to scoop up her intestines. Intestines, they are like really slippery, and in her condition, she would have had like a really hard time carrying it, because it would just slip out on the floor. Imagine how smart that is. Like even in that
She did
situation,
quick thinking.
yeah, and even in that situation, she was able to figure out, okay, I'm going to use my denim jacket. So she used a denim jacket to scoop up her intestines, held it tightly against her stomach, and then she got on all fours and started crawling. But after a while of crawling, after a few grueling moments, she realized that crawling on the sand and broken glass is not going to help her. It's only going to injure her more. So she needed a new plan. So with one arm still holding her stomach and its contents together, she pulled herself up. The moment she stood up though, her vision went black.
Oh my god.
Just black. So instinctively she tried to see what has happened, and when she used her other hand to touch her neck, and when she did, her hand just went like through her injury.
Oh my.
Yeah, so what happened was, when she stood up, her injury to her neck was so bad that her neck just flopped back to her shoulder, backwards.
Oh, it was that deep.
Yeah, so Alison, she used her other hand to Still holding her stomach, by the way, she used her other hand to literally pull her head back into its position, which gave her vision back immediately. So she literally pulled her head back and she's holding it there.
Oh,
I know. So with one hand holding her stomach and its contents and one hand holding up her head, now she manages to walk to the road like that.
oh my God, that's insane.
I know, and she doesn't even get to the road and collapse. She walks to the center of the road and collapse, because even then she's thinking, if I'm lying on the side of the road, people are probably not, the passers-by are probably not going to find me. So she gets to the center of the road and she finally collapsed. There she laid,
All
waiting
that
for help.
all that strength
Right?
and willpower to live
I know.
after that.
After all that. So minutes passed and a car does come by. But the driver didn't stop to check on her. The car only slowed down for a second and it sped off. Then, not much later, another car approached. This time, it was Tian, the 20-year-old veterinary student from Johannesburg. You see, Alison wasn't the first person France had abducted. On February 25th, 1994, the same year, a 20-year-old student, the name is not disclosed, so let's just call her Mary for the video, was sitting in a car outside a pizza parlor. Mary had been working part-time at another pizzeria where she was assigned to spy on their competition on that day. That's when Franz appeared beside her car, just like he would later with Alison. Only this time he had a gun, ordering her to move over while he took her place behind the wheel. He took her to an isolated area, parked her car, and SAed her. Oddly enough, he drove her to a road cafe after the assault, where he bought her a sandwich and a rose.
He took her on a date.
That's what it looks
dating
like.
her?
Yeah, so he even, just like he would with Alison, he spoke to her like they were on a date. He was telling her how much he loved his sister and that he would kill anybody who dares to touch her.
What a weirdo.
I know, and
Psycho.
so I know this all sounds very odd, and it's not very uncommon for sexual perverts to act like him. So while I was doing the research, I came across this term called gentleman rapist.
Gentleman rapist.
I know, worst oxymoron ever. So apparently, psychoanalysts they profile rapists into multiple categories based on their motivations, their modus operandi, that sort of thing. And a gentleman rapist is someone who is usually dealing with a lot of insecurities with their masculinity, and they usually need a lot of confirmation with regards to their manhood. So they engage in conversations with their victims while or during or after their attack, and to get a sense of a false sense of consensuality, I guess. So they want to believe that their victims, for some reason, likes what they are doing to them. But I guess in Francis' case, he is very irregular, because later when he does have an accomplice, he gets way more violent, because gentlemen rapists don't tend to get very violent. There are different kinds of rapists, and he's just a gentleman rapist wouldn't get violent. But France does not really strictly adhere to this. So it's just a term that they use to understand people. It's not really, there are
category.
like a category. It's not really set in stone. People don't, you cannot really understand human beings to the point that this is exactly how they behave,
Correct.
Right. So Franz then drove her to a lodge after he bought her a sandwich and proceeded to essay her again before he dropped her off in the town. And Mary, who is shaken up by the ordeal, does not really speak to anyone for a week. She tries to keep it to herself. She probably didn't want her parents to get freaked out. So when she finally does speak to somebody, her friend convinced her to talk to the police. And by then it was already too late to administer a rape kit. So since they could not get a rape kit done, they could not extract any forensic evidence in Mary's case. Even though they couldn't get the forensic evidence, she was able to give them enough details to help him find their assailant. They did catch him though, very soon really. Turned out his name was Franz du Toit. That's his full name.
France to Toits.
Franz du Toit. Franz du Toit was a 26-year-old, had a son, had a wife who was pregnant with another child, and he had a job. He had a stable job and a fixed address, and for those reasons, on March 15, 1994, the Magistrates Court released him on bail for 100 South African rand. That's $20, by the way, in today's value. $20.
They released a rapist.
An alleged rapist, because they trailed
$20.
Exactly, $20.
That's nothing.
It's embarrassing.
That's disrespecting the
Exactly.
victim.
Yeah, and you know what? It gets worse. Later, that same year, on December 4th, this is 2 weeks before Alison's incident, du Toit struck again. This time, he took along his 19-year-old neighbor, Thamm Kruger. Their victim this time was a 21-year-old woman who is 3 months pregnant. A pregnant lady. So again, her name is also not disclosed, so let's just call her Eve. So Eve was headed out to a corner store when Kruger and du Toit abducted and SAed her. When she complained that it was hurting and that they would hurt the baby because she was pregnant, du Toit actually asked her to shut up and asked Kruger to hold her down, and they continued. That's the kind of men that they are. The men even discussed killing her like they would with Alison, remember? They even discussed killing her in front of her, but fortunately they let her go in Eve's case. Eve did not wait a week to complain though. In fact, on her way from the assault, she saw a police van, so she went straight from the assault to complain. Du Toit was caught again the very next day this time, and you know what happened?
What happened?
So they were let go again. Surprise, surprise. And this time without a bail. They let them go without a bail.
Again, why?
So there are multiple reasons that they mention. So apparently they were arrested by a different police squad from a different station. So both the police and the prosecutor in the case during the trial, the bail conversation in the court, the prosecutor didn't really know that du Toit was out from a different case.
They didn't know that he was on bail already?
They didn't know they were on bail, but do you really need to know that someone was already on bail to not let them go without a...
Exactly. This time, even with forensic evidence, they released...
See, the forensic evidence was not really available immediately. This is the very next day. So they had to... It's called habeas corpus, right? You have to bring the person to the magistrate's court then very next... Okay. During that time, so the prosecutor says he did not know about du Toit's previous crime. However, do you really have to know about the previous crime to not let an alleged gang rapist go?
It's ridiculous.
I know. The Attorney General, this will be the prosecutor's office by the way, later released a statement defending the prosecutor in this case. And he said, and I quote, "The prosecutor in the second case did not have knowledge of the first. He had no reason to suspect that Mr. du Toit had already been released with a warning in relation to a previous rape charge." I mean, sure, but any prosecutor would know that someone who's capable of crime of this caliber would probably had done it previously and would probably reattempt again, right? At least they could have retaliated against. It's absurd without a bail amount. Like they were let go scot-free. And this was a case of a gang rape of a pregnant woman. For an outsider, at least, it looks like everyone in the system was just so desensitized to violent crimes like rape against women.
Yeah, that's true.
And they were just let go. I cannot believe this.
Enough. That's clearly what it looks like.
Exactly. Because if Franz du Toit and Thamm Kruger had been in police custody for their earlier crimes, they wouldn't have been out drinking on the night of the 18th. They wouldn't have been out looking for a girl, and I quote, "a beautiful girl to rape and kill with a nice car so they can steal the car afterwards." So on the 17th night, Kruger had spent the night at Franz's place. They were barbecuing, and sometime during the night, Franz had got into a fight with his wife, and the two of them, Kruger and Franz, decided they were going to head out to a shebeen to get drunk.
Shebeen? What's a
shebeen? Yeah, so this is actually a very interesting piece of history, right? Of a South African history, actually. And it's worth taking a few seconds to understand what it is. So, a shebeen is basically an illegal bar or a tavern in South Africa, but it's more than just that. It's a whole piece of history in the sense that during apartheid, black South Africans weren't allowed to buy or sell alcohol.
Technically, under the law, they weren't allowed to drink.
It was illegal to drink.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
for years on end, for decades. So these citizens, they started running secret bars in their own homes, and they were run by women. And these women were called shebeen queens.
Shebeen queens.
Shebeen queens, and they would sell these traditionally brewed beer. And this is a very important piece, a part of South African history, by the way.
Yeah.
And these shebeens actually became a place where people would come and drink and chill out and socialize after a long, brutal days of work. So, but they were also later used as hubs for political meetings. So, a lot of anti-apartheid activism happened in shebeens.
So shebeens are like a big piece of history. in
Big
South
piece of
Africa.
history, and because a lot of
Black history in South Africa.
exactly. So later, after apartheid ended, a lot of these shebeens were legalized, and you can still find them today. So that's a shebeen. Learn something new every day,
Yeah.
right? Franz actually owned one. He owned a shebeen. So he and Kruger went there and got wasted on the 17th night. Now, the two of them already had it in their head that they were going to attack someone else again soon, and because they got caught the last two times, they had decided that the next time they weren't just going to essay somebody, they were also going to kill them to cover the tracks. So that night, Franz and Theons set out looking for a beautiful girl to rape and kill with a nice car so they can steal the car afterwards. After a while, Kruger got really pissed because they had no luck finding a girl and stormed off to a nearby club, telling Franz to come get him if he found someone. Franz just hung around, wandering parking lots and looking for a new target. Hours passed like that until 1 a.m. on the 18th, when he spotted Alison just as she was parking her car outside her home. He then abducted her, picked Kruger up from the club. Together they drove her to an isolated area, and they brutally essayed her, disemboweled her, and left her there to die. They actually went about the very next day as they would any other day. They woke up late, had breakfast. Kruger made toast, and oh, the knife they used to make the toast, same as the one he used on Alison a million times last night.
Oh my.
Without washing, blood still on it.
Without washing.
Yeah, it's terrible people. Gets crazier actually, and after that wholesome breakfast they had, they spent the rest of the day planning their next attack. Yeah, this time the plan was to dump their next victim off of a bridge which was popular for suicides in their town. They figured if somebody found the body, that they just think it's a suicide. So they had decided to do this the very next day.
This is like a daily thing for them.
Daily. Right now it has become, because they didn't get caught the last two times, so why would they stop
system
now?
Caught them and released them
Twice.
for it to happen again and again.
Again and again. So
People were just planning it on repeat.
yeah. So now they're thinking, we're not getting caught anyways. Let's just do it more and more. And this, you see how it's getting. The first one happened in February, then in December, and then in December again, and then now they're planning again the very next day. Yeah. So you see how cocky they're being, almost like, no one's going to catch us, nobody cares, so we're going to continue. No consequences, exactly. The next day at 5 a.m., these bozos are still asleep, by the way, a squad of police officers break into their house and arrest them. And during the interrogation, they are separated and informed that they are being charged for rape and attempted murder.
Attempted
murder.
Okay. So she
survived
that night at the hospital.
That's what actually Kruger also asked. He was like, what do you mean attempted murder? Right? And the police officer then said, he was like, yeah, the girl you tried to murder last night, she survived. And she's talking.
Wow, she's talking.
Yeah. Imagine, and this is just a day after. So one day passed, the next day. And they're caught already. So that means like it's been a while. that she's been talking,
Yeah.
right? So this is what happened. Dr. Angelov, the general surgeon who treated Alison at the provincial hospital, said that in his 16 years of being a doctor, he had never seen anything like it. He said it's a miracle that she survived. And in I Have Life, a book that Alison would co-write later in life, she described not one, but 9 miracles that came together that night that saved her life.
9 months.
9 miracles.
Okay.
So for starters, throughout the whole ordeal that she went through, she does not once panic. Remember when I told you that she did not show that she didn't want to give them the satisfaction, she does not act scared the whole time. That actually worked in her favor because she doesn't lose her energy trying to fight them, and when she is finally left by herself, she could pull herself up and find help. That actually helped her. The fact that she didn't jump out of the car, the fact that she didn't scream, didn't shout, all of that helped her. When Dutoit strangled her, her bowels evacuated. She pooped, right? Remember I told you? So which cleared her intestines, which means when she was stabbed later, it reduced the risk of infection of her.
Chances of her getting infected were lower.
Yeah, because the poop didn't mix up with the wounds, right?
Okay.
So it didn't really infect her. Also, when she was stabbed close to 37 times in her abdomen, Dutoit missed every single vital organ in her tummy.
Oh my.
He missed every single vital organ.
So it was mainly her intestines that were
A few things,
nicked,
but her vital organs were fine.
Oh.
And
That is actually a miracle.
I know, when she was slashed after that, her neck was slashed, right? Close to 17 times.
Yeah.
He missed many different vital organs. For example, he missed what's called a corticoid arteries. It's like over here. These arteries take the blood from your heart to your brain. So it's very important to keep your brain functioning, especially in that case because she had to find help. If her brain was not working, she wouldn't have found help. She couldn't have.
She was able to think clearly.
Exactly. So he missed that.
Oh, wow.
And he also missed her vocal cords. He did slash her windpipe though, but not her vocal cords, so she could talk. And even when he did slash her windpipe, it actually helped her because it helped her take airflow into her lungs through a slashed wound. Remember the gurgling sound?
Yeah.
So that actually kept her alive. Also, they threw the denim shirt at her when they left.
Yeah.
That also helped her because carrying her intestines to the road wouldn't have been Alison couldn't have done that, especially with all of her other injuries. Carrying all of that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it would have been slimy as well.
Exactly.
With
So
all that blood, it would slip out of her hand.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that she had a denim shirt also helped out. Remember I told you it was a full moon night on the 18th? There was not one street lamp on that road. Because it was a full moon night, the whole place was illuminated and she could find her way. That's another miracle. It was also one of those warmer than usual days, which also prolonged the time that Alison could have survived being naked and exposed on the road. Number 8. Her knight in shining armor, Tian Elord, was not even from Port Elizabeth. And the fact that he was actually trained in veterinary science also helped out. Even though he's not a medical doctor, he had enough medical training to know how to behave in such high pressure situations.
Okay.
Finally, Dr. Angelov, the doctor that was on call that night at the hospital, was a thoracic surgeon, which was perfect for Alison's injuries. Let me explain. I know. When Alison was brought in, the intensive care specialist and anesthesiologist, Dr. David Corman, took one look at her condition and he realized her injuries were drastic. There was a deep slit on her throat. He could see her spinal cords, by the way. It was that bad. Her thyroids were out and it was split in half. Her intestines were out of her body. He couldn't believe how this woman was still alive. So he called the doctor on call, Dr. Angelov, who was a general surgeon. He was called to operate on her. Dr. Commons sat Dr. Angelov down and he said, see, we need to get hold of an ENT surgeon first to fix her throat. So once she's stabilized, you, Dr. Angelov, can go in and do the abdominal surgery. Right? Okay. So they had to find an ENT surgeon that night. Dr. Angelov then, as if it was fate, stands up and informs the guy, Dr. Common, saying that Doctor, I have been trained as an ENT surgeon and a general surgeon in my home country. He's German, by the way,
Oh my
and he can
God,
do
the
both.
odds.
I know, and it's the odds exactly. So Alison was in surgery for more than 3 hours that night. Dr. Angelov painstakingly, carefully scrubbed every inch of her intestine, which was covered in beach sand and charcoal and all other foreign materials. He stitched up every nick in her internal organs, making sure that it does not get infected later. And by next morning, she woke up. Tian was there when she woke up. So was her mother. Her father came to meet her a little later from Johannesburg. Her friends came to meet her maybe a week later. Word got around Port Elizabeth during the next few weeks about the girl who was found in dire situations in the middle of nowhere. And soon, Alison's hospital room started resembling a flower shop.
Oh wow.
But Alison's battle was nowhere near over. Every single nerve in her body hurt. She had this tube inserted through her mouth and her vocal cords all the way to her lungs, which was keeping her alive. But the sun was still shining in Alison's face, and in that moment, she was just happy to be alive. Detective Nadia Swanepoel. Now, she had a hunch. She was pretty sure who was responsible for the attack on Alison because word had got around about two bozos who've been victimizing women around town. So she went to the hospital with a stack of black and white photographs of criminals, and she made sure to include Franz and Theon's photographs in it.
Okay.
Alison was so tired and in so much pain that morning, but in pure Alison fashion, she went through every single page, page after page, and she identified both Franz and Theon, and she wrote their names on a piece of paper. She couldn't talk because she had a tube into her.
down her throat.
So she went through it and she wrote it on a piece of paper next to her. But later that day, the police officers would come back again. So apparently, they spoke to the prosecutor on the case and they said if Alison could verbally say her assailants' names, the prosecution's case would be stronger.
That's
wanted her
ridiculous
to-
to have to say it.
I know. But you see, the last two times they were let go.
True.
Right? So they wanted to make sure, the prosecutor wanted to make sure, and the word got around, and it's a big case. This is probably going to get a lot of public outrage and attention. They were just trying to remain as cautious as possible. But Dr. Common was flabbergasted by this request. He was like, what do you mean verbally? She has a tube down her throat to her lungs, and if they take it out, they might undo the good work that they had done last night. So he went to Alison and he informed her that this was the case. And you know what Alison did?
What?
She wrote on a notepad next to her, "Take it out."
What a badass.
Right? And after they took it out, Alison was like, that's wonderful. My attackers are Franz and Theon's. Now the police can go ahead and arrest them. So they barge in, arrest the guys, separate them, and are informed that they are being charged for rape and attempted murder. So the investigating officer assigned for the case, his name is Detective Melvin Humpel. Detective Humpel was a diamond of a man, that's to say the least. The way he protects Alison throughout this case is nothing short of commendable. Let me give you an example, right? Alison's case was actually a historical case in South Africa for many reasons. One of the reasons was that in South Africa, in 1990s and historically, the procedure was that the victim had to identify the suspect by touching them on the shoulder. So they had,
What?
yeah.
So they have to go to the police station and not only come face to face but even touch their
Imagine in a case like that, having to touch your assailant's shoulder.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And you have to touch the shoulder, and a picture is usually taken of this and which is then given in court.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And for the first time in South Africa, Detective Humpel and his team decided that they were not going to do that with Alison. Instead, they had an identity parade with a one-way mirror, like the ones that you see on television, right? Oh, another reason why Detective Hampel was just the most perfect person for this case was that prior to the court proceedings, prior to the trial, Detective Hampel sat the two of them down, the two accused down, and told them, I will not be handcuffing both of you throughout the trial, and I want you to run, and I will put a bullet in your heads.
Oh my god.
Badass, no? Like, and throughout the trial, they were not handcuffed. They were not handcuffed, and they did not try to run even once. The Supreme Court trial for the Ripper rapists, that's what the newspapers call them, the Ripper rapists, was set to begin on the 12th of June 1995. On the 8th of June, though, Dutoit held a press conference to announce that he will be subjecting himself to an exorcism in the prison on the 10th, 2 days before the trial.
An exorcism.
An exorcism. Convenient, right?
And would that work in court?
I mean, there have been cases previously in the US and the UK where people have claimed demonic possessions, but it's never really taken serious. I mean, the case in Conjuring 3, I think we all have seen that movie. That is actually based off a real case in the US, but it's never really taken seriously.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Exactly. In Francis' case also, he claimed that he was possessed by incubus and succubus.
Incubus and succubus.
Incubus and succubus. So an incubus is like a demon, like a male demon that attacks women when they're asleep, sexually attack women when they're asleep. And a succubus is a female demon that lures men into having sexual relationship with them.
Okay, so succubuses are like mermaids then.
I mean, I guess these maybe, but these are more like demons, and they appear when you're asleep. It's all very goofy, man. Really, that's what it is. It's very goofy.
It's folklore. It's fiction.
Exactly.
It's make believe.
Yeah. So Franz Dutoit was the son of a police officer, and like many sexual perverts do, they showed signs of antisocial behavior and a fascination for violence at a very early age. When he was in grade 8, he was expelled from his school for setting his dormitory on fire. He said he got influenced by heavy metal music. Yeah. So his parents moved him to a different town, and it was here that he claims that he met a girl who was a witch. A witch. So apparently this witch, she performed rituals on him, which resulted in him getting possessed by the incubus and succubus. It's a story, okay? Yeah, we don't know how much of this is true. But anyways, he was into Satanism. That's what he was into. Dutoit was overall an utter failure, just like many other sexual predators. He had a hard time keeping jobs. When he was sent to the military, he spent most of his time in detention barracks. When his parents found him a job after the military, he got himself fired for stealing money. He left his he has another wife and a child. He left them because they didn't satisfy him sexually. Just overall the best kind of person, really. His partner in crime, Theon Kruger, also did not have an easy life. His father left his mom shortly after she got pregnant, after which she married two different men. Theon claims that the second stepfather, sexually assaulted him as a child. However, the stepfather vehemently denies this and threatens defamation on anybody who says so. So I don't know how reliable this is. This is just something Kruger had said later when he was in prison. Kruger was heavily bullied as a child for having 3 nipples. He had 3 nipples, so he was heavily bullied. He did not really fit in anywhere. He didn't feel like he belonged anywhere. So he got himself involved with drugs and alcohol at a very early age. And after grade 10, much like Franz, Theon also joined the army. Theon also claims that when he got back from the army, he got into an intense sexual relationship with a witch who introduced him to Satanism, much like Mr. Dutoit. But what seems more plausible is that he met Dutoit at the Shebeen, and who probably introduced him to Satanism and demons.
Both of them seem to have been
the same story, yeah. Their pleas for sympathy with regards to Satanism and possession played out in court too. From the side of the defense, the priest that conducted the exorcism testified for France, and he said that France had shown signs of possession and that now, thanks to his good work, is now free of the demon. His wife also took the stand and repeated all of France's lies. The judge was not impressed at all by this. He said it would be a sad day for South Africa if someone's religion served as a mitigating factor. On the prosecution side, all three women testified: the pizza parlor intern, the pregnant lady, and Alison. Alison actually made history again in this case when she decided to reveal her name to the public. As with many communities around the world, sexual assault and discussing about it is actually seen as taboo in South Africa. We can relate to this because we come from India and it's similar here. So, historically, most women, due to the fear of being ostracized or shamed, they choose not to identify themselves. Alison, but never felt this way. She wanted to do something to tell other victims of sexual abuse that they didn't really need to hide the experiences, and that she wanted to start breaking down the notion that women are somehow to blame for being raped. So she became one of the first sexual assault survivors in the history of South Africa to reveal their names. When it was finally time for sentencing, the judge sentenced France du Toit to 3 life imprisonment, one for each attack, with no scope for parole. And Theons was sentenced for 25 years for the rape of the pregnant woman and a life imprisonment with no scope for parole for Alison's case. Death penalty was actually in the talks, but it was not in the talks because it was deemed unconstitutional in South Africa at that time, and it still is. But the judge actually was later quoted saying that he would have considered it for these two.
Yeah, if they had the death penalty.
If they had the death penalty, that he would have considered it.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
You don't want to see people like this walk scot-free.
Exactly, and in a lot of cases they do. So the icing on the cake was that the judge that presided over this case wanted their prison record to show that he wanted both of them to remain in prison for the rest of their natural lives. So he wanted to add it to their prison record in writing that the judge wants them in prison for the rest of their life. So even if they were to apply for parole, even though there is no parole option for their sentence, even if they apply for parole later, that the judge later knows that this judge did not want them out.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it then. The bad guys are locked up in prison forever. Everyone went back to their regular lives. The media found a different case to cover. And Alison, she can now go back to living her best life. Like nothing ever happened. Right? It wouldn't take too long after the trial for Alison to realize that there was no going back. She was never going to be the same old carefree Ali who traveled the world not a care. In 2016, Alison and her incredible story was covered in a documentary. In it, she talks about the first time she found herself in the depths of depression. After the trial, Alison couldn't go back to her regular life. She suddenly stopped caring about everything and anything she had ever cared about. She didn't want to go into work. She did not go into work most days. She didn't even call in sometimes. She just stopped caring about everything. That's around the time that she got the call from the Rotary Club to speak at one of their events. Alison was a little confused. She wasn't motivated enough to get out of bed to begin with. How is she supposed to motivate a crowd of business people at a Rotary Club? But despite all that, she just felt like it was her calling. So she did it. And then she realized she was really good at it. So she took up more and more speaking gigs, and through those talks, she met women from around the country and the world who were inspired by Alison's incredible survival story. She found meaning in all of that, and that became her career as a motivational speaker. But in her personal life, something really weighed down on her. Alison no longer looked like herself, and she thought she would never find love again because she thought she was disfigured. She had all these scars on her body, on her stomach, on her neck. She really thought she wouldn't find somebody after that. She thought she'll never find love again, and this is her life now. She was wrong though. In 1997, she got married to her husband, Teeny Botha, who she met at a friend's party, and they instantly fell in love. Then Alison did something miraculous altogether. You see, when she was stabbed close to 37 times, the doctors told her that she might never have children again. But she had not one, but two sons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And guess what? Oh, this is the best part. This is the best part of the whole survival story. Remember Tian, the veterinary student from Johannesburg? So, remember I told you he was a veterinary student?
Yeah.
He decided after the incident, he was so moved by it all that he decided he was not going to be a veterinary doctor, and that he was going to become a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Right. So then when it was time for her second son's birth, Alison and her husband Teeny called up Tian and asked him if he could be the assisting doctor for her son's birth.
Wow.
And he said yes, and it's
That's
like,
amazing.
I know, it's like you cannot write this. It's like a whole
Full circle.
circle moment. I love this about this whole survival story. Things were actually looking up for Alison, but the incident of her assault kept peeking its ugly head every few years. In 2002, South Africa enacted a law, an act, according to which all individuals serving life sentences will be considered for parole after serving a minimum period. Typically, this is 25 years. That means in 2020, Franz du Toit and Thans Kruger become eligible for parole.
Oh my God, no.
To apply for parole, not for parole. And in 2023, almost 30 years after the incident, Franz du Toit and Thans Kruger were released on parole.
No way.
Yeah.
They were released.
They were released. And you know what? The authorities didn't even inform Alison or her legal team that they were going to do this.
But they should have. No?
They were bound by law to do it.
Oh my God.
Imagine how big this is. Alison's case is one of South Africa's most sensational cases of all time. Can you imagine when she is still alive and well? Her perpetrators were let go scot-free.
No, you can't. That's insane. It shouldn't be allowed.
It's unbelievable. So I was just thinking Franz should have been like a seriously changed man. Franz or Thiers, both of them should be seriously changed men for this thing to happen, right? To be let out in society like that. So let me paint a picture of what kind of people they became in prison. In 2015, right? This is back in 2015. 2023, they were let go. In 2015, a woman had emailed Alison saying that her daughter is Franz du Toit's current girlfriend.
What?
Yeah.
Franz du Toit's current girlfriend
Yes.
in 2015. How?
Yeah. So it turned out Franz somehow had access to Facebook in prison. He was also part of some SAed Facebook groups, these Facebook groups that terrible men go to talk about rape threats. So he used to go on them and threaten women on the internet, saying that he's going to send people to gang rape them.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All while he's in prison.
All while he's in prison.
For SAed.
Yes.
And rape.
Yes.
Aye.
I know. And it gets worse. In 2016, so that was in 2015. 2016, the very next year, Alison, she is asked to be in this documentary. It's about her survival story and her life since then. For this documentary, they had reached out to Franz so that he can say his side of the story, right?
Okay.
So you know what the conditions Franz had put forward was?
No, what?
Okay, so he had two conditions. One, a signed letter of forgiveness from Alison. Two was profit shares from Alison's book sales and motivational speaking career. Backdated.
God.
Backdated. That means ever since the beginning of it.
Oh my God. So this guy was
This
like,
is just delusional, no?
I helped you make money from this.
Oh, that's what he says. He said because he wants this because he believes that it is only because of what he did to Alison that she was able to have a success story. He called it a success story.
That's ridiculous. You're kidding.
I wish I was. I wish I was kidding. So this was the person who was let go, who was given parole. Now, the excuse the Correctional Services legal department had provided for letting the two go was that Alison did not participate in a victim offender dialogue program.
They're again blaming her for
So-
everything.
So, a victim offender dialogue program, it's actually what the name says, that the victim gets into a conversation with the offender. They wanted her to have a dialogue with the rapist.
That's insane. Such a thing shouldn't even exist in the first.
I mean, I can see that in some cases that could be helpful, right, in rehabilitating them. But in a case like sexual assault,
Yeah.
right, that's not how it should work. I don't think this is a good program to have for sexual assault victims. The release caused Alison immense pain and anxiety. In September 2024, a year after the two were let go on parole, Alison was admitted to the hospital having suffered an aneurysm and bleeding in her brain. She had to undergo brain surgery following this, and the aneurysm caused her temporary loss of speech, sight, and short-term memory loss. This year in 2025, on February 3rd, Dutoit and Kruger were finally arrested and reincarcerated again, and their parole was cancelled.
Oh, why? How?
So, a new Minister of Correctional Services took charge, and I guess there was a lot of public outrage regarding the case, and this new officer had cancelled their parole and put them back in prison.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. Alison's story is one of those rare cases where, despite enduring unimaginable trauma, she actually lived to tell her story. She made history by becoming one of the first rape survivors in South Africa to publicly reveal her identity. In the years that followed, she traveled all across the world, shared her story, and inspired thousands of women with her resilience and strength. And when she found herself back in the hospital last year in need of medical care, the very people whose life that she had touched came forward. They raised funds for her treatment to prove to her that this time she wouldn't have to be fighting this alone. In February, apart from the update on Dutoit and Kruger being put back in prison, we got another update. Alison, after spending 2 months in a rehabilitation center, went back home. In her latest Facebook post, she said, and I quote, "Physiotherapy is not easy. You start off feeling useless and unable to do the simplest of things. Just being able to stand up from a sitting position was a wonderful milestone. The occupational therapist also helped me with upper body strengthening exercises, how to make a cup of coffee, how to go to the toilet, into a car, etc." End quote. And as for the news of her attackers being put behind bars, Alison had this to say. Regarding the news about you-know-who going back to prison, that's a whole different update. Let me just get better again first, but boy is this big. Speak soon. And that's where we'll be leaving Alison's story. I'm genuinely so grateful to have come across such a brave person's journey. And the fact that we were able to do this for our first ever video was also it was very fulfilling, I would say. It was very inspiring. It was very heavy and intense. I mean, many of the times I remember just holding on to my body as I was reading it, just, but it also inspired me.
inspiring, yeah,
It was
exactly.
very inspiring, and I was so inspired by it all.
It's more than a story of victimhood, it's a story of strength and resilience.
Exactly. So I'm very happy to have covered this story. And to those of you who stayed till the end, thank you so much for supporting the channel. This was our very first video. And before we end it, Abel, I need to ask you, have you changed your mind? I know you said maybe if it was a bear versus taking a shower in the prison, you might rethink it. But let me ask you again, man or bear in a forest?
Uh, I would still have to say man.
Yeah, all right. I guess changing your mind is going to be my side quest in this whole journey of being a YouTuber.
Yeah.
We have so many more cases and stories to dive deep into in the upcoming episodes. So thank you so much for all of you who stayed till the end, and thank you for supporting the channel. And please follow and subscribe to this channel. If you have any inputs or criticisms, please let me know. And if you want me to cover a specific case, you can let me know that as well in the comments. So until I see you next time, it's bye from me.
Bye.